Hi everyone, this is Jacq Davis from Epic Yard Farm. Welcome to our garden. Today we're going to show you how we set up irrigation and soil mix for this hexagon planter that we built last weekend. Instruction and process of how to build this is on our J2D Mix YouTube channel. I'll add the links in the description for you to check it out. And hopefully you'll find today's video informative and helpful for you, and take away the intimidation on gardening, to get you started. Enjoy, and thanks for watching. Before we begin to install the irrigation for our hexagon planter, I wanted to show you how I organize my drip irrigation components. I really like this tackle box for putting the smaller components in these different compartments up here. And you can easily divide and create different compartments for organizing different things. And just make sure you always close the lid, lock it up before you open the main compartment. Otherwise this will open and everything gets spilled out, and I have made that mistake many times. But as you can see in here, you got lots of room for larger items like the pipe cutter and the drip emitter and hole puncher, all the components you'll need for adding and modifying your drip irrigation in a garden. Imagine this is the main pipe that I have already in place, and what we're doing is cutting the pipe, put in a T, and run another pipe that goes to the planter, and from the bottom edge of the planter we'll put an elbow to point up, and then we'll cut a pipe that's the length of roughly where we'll fill to the soil line of the planter, and another L to run along the edge of the planter, and another pipe here with a cap, either using a screw cap that you can unscrew to let the air out or let debris out, or the cheaper option is using this 8-figure one where you we'll show you in a minute that you can lock up the end of the pipe this way. And this is the section we'll use to run the drip emitter and everything else for the planter. So here we have the hexagon planter that we built last weekend, and we're going to install the irrigation here. This is one of the main lines we have run for the garden, and this is mainly for the vegetable garden. We're going to tap into that by adding a T here, add a pipe here, an elbow go underneath and feeds up another pipe up here. So here we go, we're going to cut into the main pipe. And I really like to use these type of connector because they're reusable. And what you need to do is screw these all the way to the base first. then once you have them connected, you want to screw these this way so it tightens around the pipe. Make sure you do it for all 3 of them. There you go, our T connection is done. Now what I usually do, I like to bury my irrigation line underground if I can. And we'll come back with more wood chips later to hide these. And now we'll come to this side to finish the rest of the irrigation. All right, we're gonna do the inside of the planter. So here is where we'll connect the elbow for it to go up. So what we'll do is try to get the elbow as close to the edge as possible. So what we'll do is, this is another reusable connector that I got from Amazon. You want to screw the caps all the way back. And you want to cut this back a little bit. Push it all the way in. Push in as far as you can. And then tighten it by unscrewing the cap down towards the pipe. Now you have your elbow pointing up. Connect the next one, which will come up to about the soil level or just below the soil level. So this is about where I like it, because the soil does go down over time and then you have to refill, but you want to go just below where the low line will be. So I like to go about 3 inches below the surface of the planter. And because this will add a height to it, so you actually want to go further down. So this is about where I'll be cutting mine. Push in as far as you can and then screw the cap up. Screw the cap up to meet the pipe. Now we can do the top section. And what you usually want to do is try to, for me, I like to run the main pipe along the edge of the planter. So we'll face it this way because I'm gonna run the next section over here. And I'm using the twisting motion to help me push the pipe into the connector. And once you're done, you can kind of position it so it goes about where you want it. Then you can tighten again the cap to come down to meet the pipe. So now you have your 2 elbows done. Now the next section is where all the drip emitters will be connected to. So we'll go ahead and put this again, make sure the cap is all the way back. Now we have the main elbows done. We're going to finish off the rest of the main pipe for the drip emitter by capping the end off. And there's 2 types of capping that I recommend. This is the cheap and simple one. You do it by sliding one of the ring over folding the pipe back to itself and then have it slide through the other ring. So once it folds back into itself, this creates a seal on the end of the irrigation. And this makes it so you can easily reposition or cut or add to your irrigation line. It's a very flexible system. And the other method is this one that I like for more permanent setup. This one has an end cap that you can unscrew in case you have debris in your irrigation line that you want to flush out, or air pocket that you would like to flush out from the irrigation line. And this one again is also a quick connect type that I like, that you can just make sure you screw the cap back all the way back like this before you insert it. Today we're going to use the cheap and simple method just in case we need to modify the irrigation setup for later, because our garden is actually constantly evolving and changing, so we like a more flexible system for future adjustments. So here we go, slide it in, fold it back to yourself, and slide it right back. That creates a nice tight seal back here. And now we're ready to fill the garden bed with the soil, and then we'll come back and show you how we add the drip emitter to this main line. So this is the basic mix for our garden beds. I wanted to show you the proportion of the three main things we like to use. Our gardening method is trying to keep things simple and affordable. So we use well-aged compost mix from City of Tempe. We have a compost program for residents in Tempe that is very affordable for us. So this is a mix of sifted and unsifted compost, and this makes up for the majority of the garden bed soil. In the middle here, this is perlite. This is also called volcanic popcorn. This is a very porous but light material that can hold water in the crevices, so microbes can have room to grow in here, and it holds water so the plant roots can actually absorb water from this. It also keeps the soil from compacting too much. And on this side, you'll see this is actually native Arizona soil that we dig up when we're planting trees. I like to keep them around to add to the garden mix that is a lot of aged compost, because there's a lot of minerals that the plants love that's in our native soil. So this is about the portion that I use to mix them up, and once I mix them all up, I'll fill our garden bed with it, and then we'll wet it down a little bit, and then we'll just repeat until we fill the garden bed up to the level we want. Now we filled up the first layer, or our first wheelbarrow of soil mix. I like to wet down the soil a little bit, so because if you pile them all up and then water later, you're gonna miss all the bottom ones. So we'll give it a good watering. Now you let it soak while you load up the second soil mix and come back and fill it up again. We'll probably do 4 or 5 loads to fill this bed up. So we finished filling the planter with our garden mix, and now we're going to set up the irrigation before we plant our plants. Usually our irrigation setup is pretty permanent in a sense of the spacing and stuff for optimum moisture. So here we go. We're going to install our drip irrigation into the planter. I just want to explain a little bit of the emitter that we're using. This is one of my favorite emitters to use. It's a 1/4 inch with built-in emitter every 6 inches. So this allows you to spiral or weave along your beds for even spacing kind of irrigation. So it's quite nice to have them already spaced out. You don't have to add emitters along the line. It's very convenient and easy to use. Now we're going to punch a hole in our main irrigation line. And we're going to use a connector to insert into the line like this. And what I like to do usually is add a regular tubing into this to give it a little bit of a spacing. And you'll do the connection to the emitter tubing using a elbow. Now we'll connect the emitter tubing to the elbow. Now I like to use these pins to secure them in place. So they don't uncoil themselves as you start to spread them out. And we come to an end here. You can cut off where you want the center to be and use this thing called a goof plug. And use this end to close off the tubing. And there is our drip emitter tubing irrigation for the HEXAGON planter. Today I'm using plant starts from my favorite local grower, Barbed Gardens. Barbed Gardens grow edible plant starts that is really suited for our low desert region, and we have great success with their seedlings. So please check them out. They now do local delivery orders, no touch, no contact delivery. So check out their website for that. Here we have some tomatoes that we will be planting quite densely here. And that's kind of our planting style, is high density planting. And for the center of the planter, we'll be adding edible flower such as the bachelor button, which will grow quite tall, maybe 3 foot tall, and to add some color and give us some edible flowers to use in salads. And we're going to add some cool, semi-cool weather plants here. This is the red vine sorrel. And they will stay on the south side of the planter, because when the summer comes and the west facing direction here, the sun will beat on the plants, and the tomatoes hopefully and the bachelor button flowers will shade that side most of the day to give us a little more extended season. The plants, I'll be planting some cherry grande watermelon seeds to the front edge of the planter, so we'll have some vining watermelon coming out from the edge of the planter. Another thing we're going to plant Also seed wise is some basil seeds that will scatter around, because basil and tomato do go together. One important thing we do when we plant, people always ask me if I fertilize, and at our Epic Yard Farm 1.0 we didn't, even with the high density planting, until we learned about Tony's fertilizer. And this company is called Earth's Original Organics, and the fertilizer we use all the time now is called Tony's Magic Mix, and we'll provide a link in our description for you to figure out how to purchase and order from Tony. He delivers to Phoenix, even though he's based out of Tucson, so you can get on his social media and place orders, and he'll be able to schedule either delivery, or I also provide link to a couple of the local stores that you can buy from. So for tomatoes, we like to plant extra deep, about here when we're planting. So we'll remove some of the leaves. This way it will grow extra roots along the stem. So a pinch of Tony's Magic Mix. Over the years, we've tried a few different types of mulching for our planters. We've tried wood chip, we've tried straws, we've tried not using anything. Ultimately, I found pine needles being the best. We get the best result from them for what we do, because wood chips, a lot of times if you end up with water at the top, mycorrhiza forms. So the fungi produce this kind of almost a waterproof layer on the top. So you actually prevent water from getting into your bed if your water system goes on top of the wood chips. If the wood chips is on top of your irrigation, then it might be okay, but we find that it's very difficult to germinate seeds if you use wood chips. Pine needle is not only really light, it doesn't form the mycorrhiza, the fungi network, and it allows airflow and light to get through. So all these basil seeds I just put down will be able to get some sunlight as they sprout. And you still kind of protect it from birds and insects. So we're using our neighbor's pine leaves. Our neighbor, we are surrounded by many pine trees, and a lot of times they fall into our backyard, and we collect them, or we'll ask our neighbor to collect them and give it to us. And as you can see earlier when we were planting, the soil mix is still quite dry. We'll usually run irrigation at a very low rate overnight, so we will saturate the soil slowly and evenly. So that's something we'll do tonight. But here you go. This is how we plant our hexagon planters. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time.